Asking about the greater issue of transgenderism, Dylan Mulvaney, of course, is what kicked all of this off. What do you think about men taking the role of women and taking really women's places in advertising, in sports, playing against them? And this seems like an existential threat to women and
total fraud.
as fathers of daughters.
You have a swimmer that competes on the men's team for 3 years at Penn and then switches to the women's team and then wins the 500-yard freestyle national championship for women when you're a mediocre male swimmer and now you win the women's. And so you had a second place finisher. She was actually from Sarasota. She should have been the national champion. I did a proclamation from our office saying she was the best woman swimmer in 500 yard because she was. And so some of this is, yes, it's taking away opportunities in athletics and some other stuff, and that's really, really important. But I think there's also just the issue of, are we going to be a society based on truth, or are we going to be a society based on deceit? And if you take a man and they dress up as a woman and you tell me I have to accept that they're a woman, then you're asking me to be complicit in a lie. And I just refuse to do that. So we've got to tell the truth. I think, the truth will set you free. And let's just be honest about what's going on here. That swimmer was not the best women's 500-yard champion. Okay, the number 2 one was the best women. So that's just the bottom line. But I've got 6-year-old daughter, 5-year-old son, 3-year-old daughter. The 3-year-old just started T-ball. She's whacking the ball.
Yeah.
They're good athletes. They like to do different things. So you want to have opportunities. And we got on this very early in Florida. We did this a couple years ago where we did the women's sports protection. So that's been the law here for several years now.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about Riley Gaines, who right now probably is the bravest woman in America, as she is standing up to the mob almost single-handedly when it comes to the mission to save women's sports and women's rights, okay? And she is clapping back at Lia Thomas, who is speaking out in favor of the Biden administration's proposed changes to Title IX that would basically prevent outright bans of transgender athletes or biological boys competing against biological girls in sports for K through 8. As we see here, the Biden administration is on board with the far left gender agenda, right? And Lia Thomas, who has dyed his hair red, is coming out here in support of what the Biden administration is doing, okay? And I want to go ahead and play this video, and then we're going to talk about Riley Gaines' response and this legislation that the Biden administration is trying to push through. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
I'm Lia Thomas. I'm a transgender woman, a former college swimmer, and the first trans athlete to be named Division I NCAA champion. I started swimming when I was 5 years old, and it has taught me so much. It has given me so many opportunities to learn, grow, develop, and connect with my peers. Opportunities that I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't have access to athletics. That's why it breaks my heart to see trans kids across the country lose out on these opportunities. The Department of Education has proposed a new rule for Title IX regarding transgender athletes. This rule would prohibit blanket bans on transgender kids, especially in grades K through 8. However, it would not prohibit discrimination against trans kids in the high school and college levels under the guise of competitive fairness. This rule is a good start. However, it is not enough. During this time of intense anti-trans backlash, the trans community needs explicit protections from discrimination in order to live our lives freely and equally. Luckily, this rule is not final. We have a 30-day period to urge the Biden administration to amend the rule and grant equal protection for all transgender kids, because all trans kids deserve the opportunity to compete and play in the sports they love without compromising who they are. Join me in commenting on this proposed rule and demanding equal protection for all transgender athletes. All trans kids deserve the opportunity to be themselves and participate.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand how delusional this is, okay? This person is saying that the Biden administration's bill doesn't go far enough because it doesn't outright ban the banning of biological men or biological boys competing against biological girls in sports in high school under the guise of competitive fairness, in which that would make this bill discriminatory, right, for high school trans students. Again, do you guys understand the logic here? Okay, this person does not believe in competitive fairness, okay? They think that it is totally fine for a biological boy to compete against a biological girl, and that saying that it's not fair is not a legit excuse not to let that happen, right? And they say it's discrimination. You're discriminating against trans people because you want to stand up for fairness, okay? It makes no sense at all. These people, again, are living in Cuckoo for Cocoa Puff world when it comes to this issue, and Riley Gaines is responding accordingly. She says, under the guise of competitive fairness, are you really trying to say you would have won a national title against the men? Does it not break your heart to see women lose out on these opportunities? The Biden administration proposed bill denies science, truth, and common sense. Facts. I mean, yeah, this person clearly would not have won against the men. There's no way in hell this person would have won a national title in the men's division, which is why, in my opinion, they decided to become a woman, because it was like, okay, well, it's much easier to beat women because there is not a competitive fairness, okay, when biological men and women are competing against each other, and this person knows it. That's why they decided to compete amongst women, in my opinion. Okay, now, again, this person may be living their life as a, transgender woman or whatever, which they may not be able to come back from, considering how, again, they made national headlines competing against women. So, I don't know. But in regards to what Riley Gaines is saying about the Biden administration denying science, truth, and common sense, I mean, that is basically the Democrat Party in a nutshell, okay? They deny science, especially when it comes to this issue right here, okay? They deny truth, right? When it comes to what's happening in these inner liberal cities, they ignore what is happening, the destruction and the violence that is happening in this country. And yeah, they lack common sense, right? I mean, these are the basics of the Democrat Party. Science deniers, truth deniers, and lacking common sense. She goes on to say, this take is selfish and shows an utter disregard for women. The Biden administration is actively and aggressively working to pass laws that erase decent and fair treatment for women in sports. At POTUS, I'll post a link for the comments and guidance on how to respond soon. So let's expand a little bit on this, because there's a fight going on right now between Democrats and Republicans over this, okay? You have the Biden administration proposing these changes to Title IX, which, in my opinion, kind of defeats the purpose of why you have Title IX in the first place, which was to protect women, right? And to give them equal rights and stuff like that. But now it seems like Title IX is being altered to actually take away rights from women. It's kind of funny how that works. But Republicans are proposing their own legislation to push back against the Biden administration and his proposed rules to alter Title IX. So let's read here. Riley Gaines slammed the Biden administration as former NCAA swimmer Lia Thomas backed the bill to amend Title IX to bar states from banning transgender students from competing against the same gender they identify as. Thomas, who created a firestorm in women's swimming when she won an Ivy League and NCAA championship competing against biological women, expressed her support for the Title IX changes in a video tweeted by Gaines. The former standout swimmer from Kentucky has been at the forefront of the fight to keep women's sports equal as the debate rages over whether transgender females should be allowed to compete against biological women. Okay, so we all know what she said about Biden, okay? Gaines' latest criticism came after the White House vowed to veto a bill that would prevent biological males from participating in women's sports should it pass both houses of Congress. The Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, or H.R. 734, was introduced by Representative Greg Steube, Republican of Florida, and is expected to come to a vote on the House floor sometime this week. Quote, the administration strongly opposes House passage of H.R. 734, the White House said in a statement. For students nationwide, participating in sports and being a part of a team is an important part of growing up, staying engaged in school, and learning leadership and life skills. H.R. 734 would deny access to sports for many families by establishing an absolute ban on transgender students, even those as young as elementary schoolers, playing on a team consistent with their gender identity. Yeah, so again, I'm not sure exactly how you can have elementary school students who are transgender, right? I'm not sure how that's a thing, but this is what the Biden administration is saying, okay? They're just giving a full-throated endorsement to the far-left gender agenda of allowing biological boys to compete against biological girls in sports. Okay, they're against women's rights. They're actively against women's rights. The statement accused politicians of dictating a one-size-fits-all requirement that forces coaches to remove kids from their teams and argued transgender youth across the country were already facing a mental health crisis. I mean, you know, I would agree with that statement. There is a mental health crisis, but the Democrats probably mean it in a different way than I believe what's going on. Okay, again, I mean, you know, you got to be careful how you characterize this stuff, because, you know, people might say it's hate speech, right? But again, Democrats are saying that, hey, there's a mental health crisis going on here. But again, you know, that issue lies with actually getting them help. I don't think that doubling down on you know, their belief that they're the opposite sex and allowing them to compete against the opposite sex, aka discriminate against girls and women, is the solution here. Okay, because they're not being discriminated against when it comes to sports. They're allowed to play sports. They just have to compete amongst those of the same sex. It's really that simple. That's not discrimination. That's actually fairness. Again, these people are living in cuckoo for Cocoa Puff world, man. It claimed such a law was unnecessary and that it hurts families and students. Yeah, I mean, what Biden is doing is unnecessary, right? What he's doing is unnecessary. Quote, discrimination has no place in our nation's schools or on our playing fields. Instead of addressing the pressing issues that families and students face today, such as raising teacher pay, keeping guns out of schools, addressing the mental health crisis our youth face, and helping students learn and recover academically from unprecedented disruptions, congressional Republicans have instead chosen to prioritize policies that discriminate against children, the White House said. Okay, so couldn't I reverse this on the White House and say, instead of focusing on all those things, you're focusing on trying to protect transgender elementary school kids being able to compete against the opposite sex in sports, right? You're more focused on discriminating against women than you are on all these other issues that you claim that you care about so much. Now, Biden's saying he would veto the Republican bill. Now, will the Republican bill actually get to his desk? Well, it's going to pass the House. The Senate is probably a toss-up. The whole Democrat Party is on board with the extreme gender agenda. So I don't think that any Democrat is going to get on board with this bill, okay, in the Senate. So, you know, it's probably dead in the water. It probably won't reach his desk. But just the fact that the Biden administration is going out of their way to once again kind of codify this stuff into law is showing you how far this is going, right? This is what the Democrat Party believes in. This is a part of their mainstream platform, okay? This is what they believe. This is what they are supporting. The discrimination and the erasure of women. It's very simple. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.